are not a problem to solve. You are a presence to live. The idea that you must constantly improve yourself before you are worthy is like believing the sky must be painted before it can be beautiful. This belief quietly drains your energy, distracts you from living, and delays the love you could already be sharing. The truth is simple. What you are seeking is not ahead of you. It is already within you, waiting for you to notice. From an early age, most of us are given a subtle but powerful message: you are not enough as you are. It doesn't always come in harsh words. Sometimes it's in the look of comparison between siblings. Sometimes it's the endless stream of advertisements promising happiness if you just fix your skin, lose the weight, or speak more confidently. Sometimes it's in the way parents, with good intentions, constantly point out what you could do better. And over the years, this quiet whisper of inadequacy turns into a belief so deep that it becomes invisible, like water to the fish that swims in it. We no longer notice we are living inside the idea that we are incomplete. In relationships, this belief works like a hidden operating system. Without realizing it, it shapes how we communicate, how we set boundaries, even how we choose partners. If you believe you are incomplete, you will look for someone to complete you. That search can be intoxicating at first. The early days of romance feel like they fill the empty spaces in your heart. But the truth is, no one can fill a void created by self-doubt. They can distract you from it for a while, but eventually the illusion wears thin and the same feelings of not enoughness resurface. Only now they are tangled up with someone else's expectations and disappointments. Neuroscience has shown us that the brain is not an impartial observer of reality. It's a pattern-making machine. The beliefs you hold influence which patterns it strengthens. If you constantly think you're lacking, your brain will highlight evidence to prove it. A partner forgets to text back, and instead of considering they are busy, the mind whispers, "See, you are not important enough." A friend cancels dinner, and instead of thinking about their circumstances, the brain nods in agreement with the old story. You must not be worth the effort. Over time, these interpretations become the default, not because they are true, but because they are familiar. Physiology mirrors this mental habit. When you feel incomplete, your body responds with tension. Shoulders draw in, breath becomes shallow, the nervous system shifts into a state of vigilance. You begin to scan your interactions for signs of rejection or disapproval. This stress response isn't just in your head. It changes hormone levels, influences your immune system, and can even reduce your ability to read other people's emotions accurately. In other words, the belief in your own incompleteness doesn't just stay in your thoughts. It lives in your body and affects every relationship you have. Consider a woman named Lina. She was intelligent, compassionate, and creative, yet in her relationships, she always felt the need to earn love. When her partner seemed distant, she would overcompensate, cooking elaborate meals, writing affectionate notes, rearranging her schedule to be more available. She told herself she was being thoughtful, but deep down, these were offerings made to silence an inner voice that said, "If you don't prove your worth, they will leave." That voice didn't come from her partner. It came from years of hearing that love is conditional, that attention must be earned, that her natural self was not enough. And the more she tried to fix this imagined flaw, the more exhausted she became. Her relationship suffered, not because she lacked value, but because she kept approaching love from a place of self-doubt rather than self-presence. One of the most damaging effects of the illusion of incompleteness is that it teaches you to trade authenticity for approval. You begin to adjust your personality to fit what you think will keep others close. You hide your opinions to avoid conflict. You pretend to be less hurt than you are to avoid being seen as too sensitive. Over time, this performance creates distance, the very distance you were trying to avoid. People may like the version of you they see, but deep inside, you know they don't know the real you, and this deepens the loneliness, even when you are surrounded by others. There is an ancient saying, when you realize there is nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. This is not a call to arrogance. It is an invitation to see that worth is not something to be acquired, but something to be recognized. In relationships, this recognition changes everything. Instead of looking for someone to validate you, you begin to share life with someone from a place of fullness. You no longer cling to them for identity or purpose. Instead, you choose them freely and they choose you. Not to complete each other, but to walk alongside each other as complete beings. Psychology calls this a secure attachment, and it is one of the most powerful predictors of relationship satisfaction. People with secure self-worth are less likely to interpret neutral events as threats. They are more resilient in the face of conflict. They give space without fear and receive space without panic. In simple terms, they love without constantly checking whether they are being loved back in the same moment, because they already carry an internal sense of being enough. Now, the challenge is that the illusion of incompleteness is not just a thought you can erase by repeating affirmations. It's a habit of perception. You've been practicing it, often unconsciously, for years. Breaking this habit starts with awareness. Notice when you interpret someone's action as proof of your inadequacy. Pause before you accept the story your mind offers. Ask yourself, is this fact or is this an old script? This small pause interrupts the automatic link between feeling and meaning. And every time you do this, you begin to loosen the grip of the illusion. In physiology, we know that repetition strengthens neural pathways. This is true for beliefs as well. If you begin to intentionally notice moments when you are enough, when you show kindness, when you solve a problem, when you simply exist and breathe, you start to train the brain to recognize a different reality. Over time, this reshapes not only your thoughts, but also your posture, your breathing, your way of entering a room. Others can feel it too. Energy communicates silently. A person who carries a quiet certainty of their own worth changes the dynamic in any relationship without saying a word. This doesn't mean you will never feel insecurity again. The human mind is a storyteller, and sometimes it will return to familiar plots. But when you know those stories for what they are, old echoes, not present truth, they lose their power. You begin to respond rather than react. You begin to choose partners, friends, and colleagues not out of fear of being alone, but out of alignment with your values. You begin to live less like someone searching for missing pieces, and more like someone arranging the furniture of a house they already own. Relationships become less about proving yourself and more about expressing yourself. Love becomes less about holding on and more about walking together without the constant fear of loss. This shift is not only felt by you, but by those around you. They notice the way you listen without defensiveness, the way you express needs without apology, the way you can receive criticism without collapsing. These are the quiet markers of a person who has stepped out of the illusion and into the reality of their own completeness. Energy always follows awareness. This is not just a poetic statement from ancient wisdom. It is a measurable truth that neuroscience, physiology, and psychology have been pointing to for decades. The way you direct your attention shapes the chemistry of your body, the tone of your emotions, and the depth of your relationships. If your awareness is constantly scanning for what is wrong in yourself, in others, in your circumstances, then your energy will be drawn toward fixing, correcting, and defending. If your awareness is tuned toward what is alive, what is working, and what is meaningful, then your energy will naturally flow into creation, connection, and presence. In the realm of relationships, where emotional currents run strong, the direction of your awareness is not a small thing. It is the difference between a partnership that feels like an endless negotiation of unmet needs and one that feels like a steady flow of mutual nourishment. The human nervous system is wired to respond to perceived threat when awareness is dominated by suspicion, criticism, or the fear of rejection. The body produces stress hormones that tighten muscles, quicken the heart, and narrow perception. This narrowing means you begin to miss the subtle signs of care that your partner offers. The small acts of kindness, the quiet ways they stand by you, because your awareness has already been claimed by the hunt for potential danger. There is a simple but revealing example of this. Imagine you are in a room filled with different conversations, background, music, and movement. Amidst all of this, someone quietly says your name from across the room. Your attention sharpens instantly toward that voice. Your brain is constantly filtering the world in this way, and it uses your awareness as the signal for what is important. In relationships, if you have trained yourself to look for disappointment, then even in a day filled with warmth, your awareness will pick out the single moment when you felt overlooked. If you have trained yourself to notice acts of love, then even in a difficult day, you will still find the touch on your shoulder, the shared laugh, the way they listened when you spoke. This is not about ignoring problems or living in denial. It is about understanding that what you attend to expands in your experience. If you repeatedly bring awareness to the same thoughts, your brain strengthens the pathways that make those thoughts come more easily in the future. Psychologists call this neuroplasticity, and it is why habitual focus is so powerful. Your attention is not a passive observer of reality. It is an active shaper of it. Consider someone who constantly assumes their partner is annoyed with them. Even when the partner is in a neutral mood, this assumption colors every word and gesture. A delayed text becomes a silent judgment. A sigh becomes disapproval. The person's awareness is locked on the possibility of rejection, and the energy responds with defensiveness or overcompensation. Over time, this dynamic can actually create the tension they feared, not because the partner was originally upset, but because the relationship became saturated with the energy of suspicion. Now, imagine the same person beginning to shift their awareness intentionally. Instead of scanning for signs of disapproval, they practice noticing moments of connection, eye contact, shared humor, small acts of cooperation. At first, this might feel forced, even unnatural, because the brain is so accustomed to its old habit. But with repetition, the habit changes. The nervous system relaxes. The body no longer moves through the day bracing for impact. And because the energy has shifted, the partner begins to feel more at ease, more willing to engage, more open to intimacy. Physiology gives us a clear picture of this process. When awareness is placed on positive, connecting experiences, the body releases oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone. This doesn't just create warm feelings. It lowers stress, improves immune function, and deepens the sense of safety in relationships. Safety is not only about physical protection, it is about emotional permission. When someone feels safe with you, they will show you more of themselves, trust you with their vulnerabilities, and extend more patience toward your flaws. Energy following awareness is also visible in conflict. Two people can have the same disagreement, but the outcome will be shaped by what each is paying attention to. If awareness is locked on winning or proving the other wrong, then energy fuels defensiveness and attack. But if awareness is on understanding the other person's perspective, then energy supports curiosity, empathy, and problem solving. The disagreement may still be uncomfortable, but it no longer erodes the foundation of the relationship in the same way. One woman I spoke with described how her marriage changed when she began to consciously place her awareness on the qualities she appreciated in her husband. For years, she had been focused on his lack of verbal affection, interpreting it as a sign that he didn't value her. But when she decided to start noticing his actions, the way he maintained the house, the way he remembered her preferences, the way he stood beside her at family gatherings, her energy toward him softened. In turn, he became more open with his words. The shift in awareness not only changed her inner experience, it altered the atmosphere between them. This principle is not about pretending everything is perfect. It is about training your awareness to see a fuller picture. If you only see the flaws, you live in a constant state of repair. If you only see the good, you risk ignoring necessary changes. True awareness can hold both, the beauty that already exists and the areas that need attention. This balanced awareness allows your energy to be used wisely, to nurture what is working and address what is not, without falling into the extremes of romantic idealism or chronic dissatisfaction. There is an old teaching that says, the mind is like a garden. What you water will grow. Awareness is the act of watering. In relationships, you are always watering something, either the seeds of connection, gratitude, and trust, or the seeds of resentment, doubt, and fear. And because energy follows awareness, whatever you water will not just survive, it will thrive. It is worth asking yourself, where does my awareness rest most of the time? Do I look for signs of care or signs of neglect? Do I notice the ways I am loved or the ways I believe I am lacking love? Do I give as much energy to appreciating my partner as I do to analyzing their mistakes? These questions are not meant for self-blame, but for gentle observation, because you cannot redirect your awareness until you know where it is. Physiologically, the redirection of awareness has another layer of benefit. It interrupts the body's stress loop. When awareness is stuck on threat or lack, the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight mode, stays activated. By consciously shifting awareness toward moments of connection and safety, you activate the parasympathetic system, which supports rest, digestion, healing, and deeper emotional availability. This is why couples who regularly express gratitude toward each other report higher relationship satisfaction. They are not only feeding positive emotions, they are also calming their bodies, making intimacy more sustainable. This practice extends beyond romantic relationships, in friendships, families, and work connections. Where awareness goes, energy follows. If your attention is habitually drawn to how someone is failing you, the energy between you will tighten. If you choose to notice where they are showing up, however small, the energy will loosen, making it easier to address challenges without the heavy weight of constant criticism. Awareness is a discipline. It is not simply the byproduct of mood, it is a choice you make repeatedly. And in making that choice, you are not just influencing your own state, you are influencing the relational field between you and others. People can feel the difference when they are looked at with suspicion versus when they are looked at with appreciation. The human nervous system is deeply attuned to these subtle shifts. A partner may not be able to articulate exactly what changed, but they will respond differently to your presence when your awareness is rooted in respect, curiosity, and care. If the first step to breaking the illusion of incompleteness is noticing how it shapes your perception, the next step is understanding that you have the power to train that perception. Energy will follow whatever you choose to focus on. And this is not just an inner exercise. It is a practical skill that changes how relationships feel from the inside out. Emotional discipline is often misunderstood. Many hear the term and imagine suppression, a tightening of the self, a refusal to feel. But true emotional discipline is not about denying your emotions. It is about mastering your response to them. It is clarity under pressure, the ability to remain anchored when the winds of emotion threaten to pull you off course. And in relationships, this discipline is one of the greatest freedoms you can give both yourself and the people you love. Without emotional discipline, every passing mood can become a storm that dictates your words and actions. When you are tired, you speak sharply. When you are anxious, you cling. When you are angry, you throw out words that cannot be taken back. In these moments, you are not leading your emotions. Your emotions are leading you. This may feel justified in the heat of the moment. After all, they hurt you, so why not respond in kind? But over time, this pattern erodes trust. A relationship built on reaction rather than reflection becomes a fragile one, easily broken by the next wave of emotional turbulence. In contrast, emotional discipline allows you to acknowledge your feelings without being ruled by them. It gives you the space to choose your response, to act in alignment with your values, rather than in the grip of an impulse. And the freedom that comes from this is not just for you, it is for your partner as well. They learn they can trust not just your love in calm moments, but your stability in difficult ones. The physiological side of this is clear. Emotions are not abstract. They are chemical and electrical events in the body. Anger speeds up your heart rate, raises your blood pressure, floods your system with adrenaline. Fear contracts your breathing and tightens your muscles. Joy expands your chest, softens your posture, and releases endorphins. These responses happen quickly, often before you are consciously aware of them. But emotional discipline is the practice of noticing the body state and pausing before you let that state dictate your words or actions. This pause is not weakness, it is strength in its purest form. Consider a couple, Daniel and Marisa. Daniel has a habit of withdrawing when he feels criticized. Marisa, feeling the withdrawal, becomes more insistent, her voice rising in volume and urgency. Without emotional discipline, this cycle escalates rapidly. His silence deepens, her tone sharpens, and both leave the interaction feeling hurt and unheard. But on one occasion, Marisa notices her voice rising and her chest tightening. Instead of pressing harder, she takes a slow breath, softens her tone, and says, "I can feel I'm getting frustrated. I don't want to push you away. Can we talk about this in a calmer way?" This small act of awareness shifts the entire trajectory of the interaction. Daniel, no longer feeling attacked, responds with more openness. The conversation moves forward rather than spiraling downward. Emotional discipline does not mean you never feel intense emotions. It means you have built the capacity to hold those emotions without letting them spill recklessly into your relationships. This capacity is like a vessel. The stronger and more spacious it is, the more it can hold without breaking. And this vessel is built through practice. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you choose to speak with care rather than lash out, every time you breathe through tension instead of dumping it on someone else, you strengthen the vessel. There is a quiet power in being able to stay present when your emotions are loud. It sends a message to your partner. I value this connection enough to handle my feelings responsibly. This builds a deep sense of safety in the relationship. Safety is not about avoiding all conflict. It is about knowing that conflict can be navigated without causing lasting harm. When both people have emotional discipline, they can disagree without destroying trust. express hurt without tearing each other down, and experience tension without losing respect for one another. In the absence of this discipline, relationships often swing between two extremes: emotional chaos and emotional avoidance. In chaos, feelings spill out unchecked, leaving a trail of regret. In avoidance, feelings are swallowed down until they harden into resentment. Both patterns weaken intimacy. Emotional discipline offers a third path, one where feelings are acknowledged, expressed, and worked through without letting them control the entire interaction. There's a saying, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. In relationships, the waves are the inevitable ups and downs of emotions. Trying to eliminate them is futile, but learning to ride them, to keep your balance in the midst of their rise and fall, is the skill that keeps you from being dragged under. Emotional discipline is that balance. It requires self-awareness, and self-awareness begins in the body. The body often feels emotion before the mind names it. The tightening of your throat before you cry, the heat in your cheeks before you speak in anger, the heaviness in your chest before you admit you're hurt. These are signals. If you can learn to notice them, you can step in before your reaction takes over. This is why practices like breathwork, meditation, and even physical exercise are so valuable. They sharpen your awareness of your internal state, giving you more opportunities to choose how you respond. One man, Elias, described how this practice changed his marriage. He used to respond to his wife's complaints with immediate defensiveness. I'd hear her say something she didn't like, and before she even finished, my body would tense, my mind would race, and I'd start firing back. He said, I thought I was defending myself, but really I was just reacting. After starting a daily mindfulness practice, Elias began to notice the early signs of defensiveness, the tightening in his jaw, the urge to interrupt. With this awareness, he started pausing, letting her finish speaking, and asking clarifying questions before responding. It was amazing how much less we fought, he said. Half the time, I realized I was reacting to something I assumed she meant, not what she actually said. Emotional discipline also allows space for repair. Even the most disciplined person will sometimes speak too sharply or withdraw too quickly. But when you have trained yourself to notice your own state, you are quicker to recognize when you've slipped and quicker to return to connection. This speed of repair is one of the most important factors in relationship longevity. It is not perfection that sustains love, but the ability to recover and rebuild trust after inevitable moments of imperfection. Freedom comes from this discipline because it releases you from being a captive of your own moods. You are no longer at the mercy of every spike of irritation, every pang of insecurity, every wave of disappointment. You have room to breathe, to see the bigger picture, to remember the love and respect that exist beyond the current discomfort. This does not make emotions less vivid. It makes them less tyrannical. In a relationship, this freedom allows you to be more consistent, and consistency is one of the deepest forms of love. It says to your partner, I will not disappear when things get hard. I will not lash out when I am hurt. I will not abandon my values in the heat of the moment. This reliability builds a sense of safety that makes deeper intimacy possible. People open themselves more fully when they know they will not be met with unpredictable outbursts or cold withdrawal. Emotional discipline also changes how you hear your partner. When you are not swept away by your own emotions, you can listen more fully. You can hear the vulnerability beneath their anger, the longing beneath their criticism, the fear beneath their silence. This deeper listening not only resolves conflicts more effectively, it strengthens the bond between you because your partner feels truly seen and understood. It's worth remembering that emotions themselves are not the enemy. They are messengers. Anger can signal a boundary has been crossed. Sadness can point to something that needs to be grieved. Fear can highlight an area where safety is lacking. But without discipline, we end up reacting to the messenger instead of listening to the message. The result is that the original need goes unmet and the cycle of emotional reactivity continues. Discipline allows you to hear the message clearly and respond to it in a way that actually addresses the root cause. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can meet your emotions without being consumed by them. In relationships, this confidence becomes a form of generosity. You can hold space for your partner's emotions without feeling the need to immediately fix or escape them. You can be present for their tears without drowning in them, present for their frustration without matching it with your own. And in turn, they can feel safe being their full self around you, knowing they will not trigger instability by expressing their truth. This stability is contagious. Just as anxiety can spread between people, so can calm. When one person holds steady, the other often finds it easier to regulate themselves. In this way, your emotional discipline is not only for you, it becomes a gift to everyone you interact with. The mirror principle is simple to say, but profound to live. How you see yourself is reflected in how others experience you. In every relationship, you are both a participant and a mirror. What you believe about yourself, consciously or unconsciously, is expressed in your posture, your tone, your boundaries, your openness, and even in the silence between words. People respond not only to what you say and do, but to the energy behind it, the image of yourself you carry into the space between you. If you see yourself as unworthy, the reflection you offer others will be shaped by that belief. You may not say it aloud, but your body language will speak it. Shoulders slightly curved inward, voice tentative, eyes hesitant to meet theirs for long. When someone offers you a compliment, you might brush it away as if they could not possibly mean it. When someone treats you well, you might grow suspicious, waiting for the moment they will change their mind. Without realizing it, you invite people to engage with the version of yourself that you believe is true. The one that is lacking, the one that must prove itself before it can be loved fully. On the other hand, when you hold yourself with quiet self-respect, you reflect an entirely different image. This is not arrogance, it is the steady presence of someone who knows their value is not up for debate. You speak with clarity, not to dominate, but because you believe your voice matters. You can receive kindness without shrinking and give kindness without fear it will be wasted. You set boundaries not as walls to keep people out, but as the healthy edges that define where you end and another begins. And others respond to this. They sense they are in the presence of someone who is not seeking to be completed, but to connect from a place of fullness. In relationships, the mirror principle operates constantly. Imagine a man who carries the belief that he is difficult to love. Every time his partner shows affection, he questions it, wondering if it's out of pity or obligation. This doubt shapes his reactions. He may downplay the affection, make jokes to deflect it, or test his partner's love by withdrawing to see if they will chase him. Over time, the partner begins to feel they cannot reach him, that their love is never enough. The man's original belief is reflected back to him, not because it was objectively true, but because his own behavior created the conditions for it to appear true. This is why self-perception is so powerful. It is not just an inner narrative. It is an active influence on the dynamics you live in. A person who believes they are competent approaches challenges with an openness that invites collaboration. A person who believes they are a burden hesitates to ask for help, and their silence can be interpreted as distance or disinterest. In both cases, the internal belief is mirrored back through the responses of others, reinforcing the original view. The mirror principle is also visible in subtle emotional exchanges. When you meet someone who sees themselves as capable and trustworthy, you tend to extend trust to them more readily. When you meet someone who doubts themselves, you may unconsciously become more cautious, offering less responsibility or leaning in less emotionally. This doesn't mean you are judging them. It means you are responding to the signals they are sending. Relationships are built on these micro signals. The small cues of body language, tone, and timing that communicate more than words ever could. There is a story of a woman named Helena who had a history of partners taking her for granted. She often found herself doing most of the emotional labor, remembering birthdays, managing the household schedule, anticipating needs before they were voiced. She told herself she was just naturally giving, but underneath was a belief that her worth came from being indispensable. The reflection she offered her partners was one of someone who would always give more than she received. Unsurprisingly, the people she was with settled into this dynamic, relying on her overextension without offering equal effort. It was only when Helena began to see her worth apart from what she provided that the mirror changed. She stopped over-functioning, communicated her needs without guilt, and chose not to rescue others from the natural consequences of their actions. The partners who stayed rose to meet her new standard. The ones who left made space for healthier connections. The mirror principle does not mean you are responsible for every way others treat you. People have their own histories, projections, and limitations. But it does mean that your self-perception sets a tone. It defines the emotional posture you bring to each interaction. If you expect to be respected, you will communicate in ways that make disrespect harder to sustain. If you expect to be dismissed, you may speak in a way that gives people permission to ignore you. This reflective process is not limited to romantic love. In friendships, if you see yourself as uninteresting, you might avoid sharing your thoughts, leading others to assume you have little to say. In professional relationships, if you see yourself as unqualified, you may hesitate to put forward ideas, and colleagues may overlook you when opportunities arise. In family relationships, if you see yourself as the one who always sacrifices, you may unconsciously create situations where your needs are never prioritized. The mirror works in both directions. Just as your self-image shapes how others respond to you, their responses can reinforce or challenge your self-image. This is why relationships can be such powerful arenas for growth. A partner who sees you as capable when you doubt yourself, or as beautiful when you cannot see it, can begin to soften the edges of an old, limiting belief. But for that new reflection to take hold, you must be willing to receive it. If your inner mirror is cracked with self-doubt, no amount of external affirmation will fully land. It will pass through the cracks and disappear, leaving the old image intact. Learning to adjust the mirror begins with noticing what it currently reflects. This requires honesty. What do you believe about your worth? How do you carry yourself as a result? In moments of interaction, what signals are you sending? Not just with your words, but with your presence. Are you communicating that your time, energy, and love are valuable? Or are you subtly signaling that they can be taken for granted? Changing the reflection does not mean pretending to be someone you are not. It means aligning your inner image with the truth of your inherent worth and letting that truth be visible. This might mean standing taller, speaking with more intention, making eye contact, or simply allowing yourself to take up space without apology. It might mean practicing receiving without immediately offering something in return. It might mean saying no when every habit in you wants to say yes to avoid disappointing someone. In relationships, this alignment has a profound impact. When you carry yourself as someone who is enough, you invite others to meet you in that space. You teach them how to engage with you, not by demanding it outright, but by demonstrating through your own presence what is and is not acceptable. People learn from the reflection you offer. And clearer and truer that reflection is, the healthier the relationship becomes. The mirror principle also extends to emotional states. If you are anxious, you often project that anxiety onto your partner, interpreting their neutral actions through a lens of fear. They, in turn, may become more guarded or reactive, reflecting the tension back to you. If you are at ease, you project calm, and the other person is more likely to respond in kind. This does not mean you must always be calm. It means recognizing that your internal state is not contained entirely within you. It leaks into the relational space and shapes the interaction. This is why cultivating self-compassion is so important. If your inner mirror is harsh and critical, you will often interpret others' actions as judgments, even when they are not. A partner's distracted moment becomes a sign they are displeased. A friend's delayed reply becomes proof they no longer value you. But when the inner mirror reflects kindness toward yourself, you are less likely to take these moments personally. You give others the benefit of the doubt because you already give it to yourself. The mirror is not fixed. Every day, in every interaction, you have the chance to polish it, to let it reflect more truth and less distortion. And as the image you carry of yourself changes, so too will the reflections you receive from those around you. The ability to remain still within, even when the outer world is shifting, is one of the greatest relational strengths a person can cultivate. Stillness here is not the absence of movement in the physical sense, but the capacity to stay centered regardless of external turbulence. It is the ability to let your mind and heart hold steady when emotions are running high, when circumstances are uncertain, and when those you care for are acting from their own storms. This stillness is not coldness, nor is it detachment. It is the fertile ground from which wise words and compassionate actions can grow. In relationships, it is often the difference between a conversation that heals and one that wounds. There is a moment in every argument, disagreement, or tense exchange where you are faced with a choice to react or to respond. Reaction is fast, fueled by old patterns, ego, and the nervous system's fight or flight response. Response is slower, deliberate, born from awareness rather than impulse. Stillness is the space that allows for response. Without stillness, words spill out before you have even processed them. Tone sharpens before you have noticed, and body language turns defensive without your consent. With stillness, there is a pause, the sacred fraction of a second where you breathe, feel your feet on the ground, and let the first wave of emotion pass before you choose your next step. In neuroscience, this is the activation of the prefrontal cortex over the amygdala. When we are triggered, the amygdala fires rapidly, signaling danger and pushing us toward quick, protective action. This is useful if you are facing physical threat, but in a relationship, most conflicts are not matters of survival. Still, the brain treats criticism, perceived rejection, or lack of control as threats to belonging, which for humans is deeply wired into our survival instincts. Stillness engages the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for reasoning, empathy, and long-term thinking. This is why taking a conscious pause before speaking in conflict can transform the direction of the conversation entirely. In practical terms, stillness in relationships might look like sitting in silence when someone you love is upset, resisting the urge to defend yourself immediately. It might look like keeping your tone calm even as your partner raises their voice, or asking for a moment to gather your thoughts rather than speaking from agitation. It can also mean holding back from immediately offering solutions when someone shares their struggles, instead allowing space for them to feel heard. Stillness is not passivity, it is intentional presence. There is a story of a couple, Daniel and Mara, who found themselves in frequent arguments. Daniel tended to speak quickly and with force when upset, while Mara would shut down, withdrawing emotionally to protect herself. This dynamic left them both frustrated. Daniel feeling unheard, Mara feeling unsafe. After seeking guidance, Daniel began practicing a form of inner stillness during their disagreements. He noticed his body tightening and his voice rising, but instead of letting the momentum take him, he took a breath, placed his hand on his own chest, and waited 3 seconds before speaking. In those seconds, the urgency softened. He was able to ask Mara what she needed rather than launching into accusation. This small act of stillness began to shift their pattern. Mara, feeling less attacked, stayed present rather than withdrawing, and the space between them became less volatile. The physiological side of stillness is as important as the mental one. Your body's state directly influences your emotional expression. When your breathing is shallow, your muscles tense, and your heart rate accelerates, your mind becomes primed for conflict, slowing the breath, lowering the shoulders, and grounding your feet sends signals through the vagus nerve to your parasympathetic nervous system, telling the body it is safe. Safety within the body creates space for clarity within the mind. This is why mindfulness and breath practices are so effective. They are not simply spiritual exercises, but biological tools for restoring relational harmony. Stillness also serves a deeper emotional function. It protects intimacy from the erosion of unnecessary conflict. Many relationships suffer not from monumental betrayals, but from repeated small ruptures that could have been avoided if one or both partners had paused. A sarcastic remark here, a dismissive gesture there. Over time, these accumulate, creating distance. Stillness is the conscious interruption of these micro ruptures. It is the willingness to ask yourself before speaking, will this strengthen or weaken the bond? That question alone can dissolve half the unnecessary tensions between people. In friendships, stillness can mean choosing not to engage in gossip even when it is offered as a bonding moment. It can mean refraining from responding to a hurtful message right away, giving yourself time to process so that your reply reflects your values rather than your wounds. In family dynamics, stillness might mean staying calm when an old pattern reappears, when a sibling makes the same joke that used to provoke you, or when a parent offers unsolicited advice. By staying centered, you allow the relationship to continue without reactivating the same cycles that have repeated for years. Stillness also creates a mirror for others. When you meet agitation with calm, you give people the chance to regulate themselves. Human nervous systems are co-regulatory. We respond to the emotional states of those around us. This is why a leader who remains calm in crisis inspires trust, and why a partner who stays steady during conflict can draw their loved one back into balance. Your stillness becomes a stabilizing force in the relational field. However, stillness is not suppression. Suppressing emotion in the name of being calm can lead to resentment, disconnection, and physical stress. True stillness allows the emotion to be felt without letting it dictate the action. You can feel anger and still speak gently. You can feel fear and still choose honesty. The difference lies in awareness, the ability to hold the feeling like a pebble in your hand, turning it over and examining it before deciding what to do with it, instead of letting it be the hand that moves you. There is an ancient teaching that says, "In the still pond the reflection is clear. In the same way, stillness in your inner world allows you to see the truth of a situation without the distortion of reactivity. Without stillness, your perception is clouded by the storm of your own emotions, and you may act on a version of reality that exists only in your mind. With stillness, you can separate what was actually said from what you interpreted, what actually happened from the story you began to weave about it. This distinction alone can prevent countless misunderstandings. Consider the difference between hearing your partner say, "You didn't call me back," and instantly reacting with, "Why are you always accusing me?" Versus pausing to notice the tightening in your chest, the rush of defensiveness, and then responding with, "I see you wanted to talk earlier. What's going on?" The first response escalates, the second invites understanding. The only difference between the two is the space created by stillness. Stillness is also the ground where forgiveness takes root. When someone has hurt you, the impulse is often to speak or act from the wound. But in stillness, you can feel the wound without letting it lead. You can see the person in front of you, not only through the lens of the hurt they caused, but through the lens of the whole history you share, the reasons they may have acted as they did, and the choice you have about how to move forward. Stillness gives you the ability to forgive without forgetting, to heal without pretending it never happened. In the context of self-mastery, stillness is a practice, not an event. You will not always succeed in staying calm. There will be times you speak too quickly or let the emotion carry you further than you intended. But each time you notice, each time you pause even a little longer than before, you are strengthening the muscle of stillness. Over time, that strength becomes part of your natural way of relating, making your relationships deeper, safer, and more resilient. And perhaps the most surprising thing about stillness is that it can be felt even in the midst of movement. You can be speaking passionately, listening intently, even laughing fully, and still be anchored in an inner calm that keeps you connected to yourself. This is the kind of stillness that does not withdraw from life, but meets it fully with the stability of someone who knows they cannot be thrown off center by the winds of another's mood or the shifting of circumstances. It is the stillness that allows love to flourish because it creates the safety in which love can take risks, grow, and be real. Energy follows awareness. This is one of those truths that is so simple it can be easily overlooked, yet when understood deeply, it changes the way you live and the way you love. What you repeatedly place your awareness upon becomes the center of your emotional life, and from that center your energy radiates outward, shaping the tone of every interaction you have. In relationships, this principle is not just important, it is decisive. It determines whether love feels like a constant struggle to fix what is wrong, or a steady practice of deepening what is right. Awareness is the mind's spotlight. Whatever it rests on, the rest of the scene fades into the background. If your awareness is constantly drawn to what is missing, what your partner failed to do, or how you feel you are falling short, then the emotional energy in the relationship will follow that focus. The atmosphere will begin to carry the weight of dissatisfaction, even in moments where no immediate problem exists. If your awareness is habitually drawn to moments of connection, to the ways your partner shows care, to what is alive and healthy in the bond between you, then the energy you carry toward them will naturally be warmer, more open, and more inviting. This is not wishful thinking. Neuroscience shows that the brain filters reality through a process called selective attention. Out of the millions of pieces of sensory data available at any moment, the mind highlights only what it deems important. That decision is shaped by past experiences, beliefs, and emotional habits. If you have developed a habit of scanning for what is wrong, your brain will become highly skilled at finding it. In your partner's tone of voice, in their body language, in their smallest decisions. And because your attention is there, your emotional energy will be pulled there as well, reinforcing the very pattern that keeps the relationship tense. Physiology mirrors this mental habit. When you focus on perceived threats, your sympathetic nervous system activates. Your muscles tighten, your breathing shortens, your heart rate rises. In this state, your capacity for empathy and curiosity shrinks, and even neutral behaviors from your partner can feel loaded with hidden meaning. On the other hand, when you intentionally direct awareness toward feelings of connection, appreciation, or shared purpose, the parasympathetic system comes online, the body softens, breathing deepens, hormones like oxytocin and serotonin are released, fostering both physical well-being and emotional safety. Think of a simple example. Imagine two people having dinner together. One has been silently annoyed all day because their partner didn't notice the new haircut they got that morning. As they sit across from each other, their awareness is fixed on this perceived oversight. The conversation feels dull. Every glance from their partner seems distracted, and the meal feels disappointing. But if they shifted their awareness to the fact that their partner came home early just to make time for this dinner, or to the warmth in their eyes when they listen, the same evening would feel entirely different. The external circumstances haven't changed. What changed is the direction of awareness, and therefore the energy flowing between them. This principle extends to conflict. When couples argue, the most common pattern is for awareness to be pulled toward defending one's position and proving the other wrong. In that state, energy is mobilized for battle. Words are sharper, listening is shallow, and the focus is on rebuttal rather than understanding. But if one or both people can shift awareness toward the intention behind the other's words, or toward the shared desire for resolution, then the energy begins to support dialogue rather than escalation. This doesn't make disagreement disappear, but it changes the emotional climate in which it unfolds. There is a story of a woman named Clara who had been married for 12 years. Over time, she had developed a habit of silently cataloging her husband's flaws. He was forgetful with household tasks, not very verbal with affection, and often absorbed in his work. Her awareness had become a running inventory of these perceived shortcomings. Unsurprisingly, her energy toward him became critical and tense. One day, during a conversation with a close friend, she was challenged to try an experiment for 30 days. She would make a conscious effort to notice and record 3 moments each day where her husband showed care, however small. At first it felt artificial, even strained. But as the days passed, she began to see what had been invisible before. The way he always made her coffee in the morning, the fact that he checked the locks every night before bed, the way he reached for her hand in public without saying anything. Her awareness shifted, and with it, her energy softened. She found herself speaking more kindly, listening with more patience, and smiling more often. Her husband, without being told about the experiment, began to mirror this energy back to her. The relationship had not been overhauled by grand gestures, but by the quiet redirection of awareness. Energy follows awareness in subtler ways as well. A person who is constantly aware of their own insecurities will radiate an energy of guardedness. Even if they speak politely and behave kindly, something in their presence feels closed. This can cause others, including a partner, to feel like they are always at a distance. On the other hand, a person who is aware of their own strengths and the ways they contribute to the relationship will naturally exude an energy of confidence and openness. People are drawn toward this energy not because of charm or performance, but because it feels safe and expansive. It's important to recognize that awareness is not the same as fantasy. Shifting your awareness toward the positive is not about pretending problems don't exist. It is about allowing the mind to see a more complete picture, one that includes both the challenges and the gifts. If your awareness is entirely on the challenges, your energy will be consumed with fixing and criticizing. If your awareness is entirely on the gifts, your energy may drift into complacency or denial. The skill is in holding both, so that your energy can be used wisely to nurture what is working and address what is not. This is where intentional practice comes in. Awareness can be trained just like a muscle. Meditation, journaling, and even simple pauses in conversation to notice your own state can strengthen the ability to direct awareness. For example, in the middle of a heated discussion, you might pause and ask yourself, what am I paying attention to right now? Am I looking for connection, or am I scanning for mistakes? That question alone can shift the focus and therefore the energy of the moment. In long-term relationships, this practice is especially valuable. Familiarity can make it easy to take each other for granted, and awareness drifts toward noticing what is missing rather than what is present. Couples who make a habit of intentionally recognizing each other's contributions, even in small ways, maintain a more positive and resilient energy over time. Studies on gratitude in relationships have shown that when one partner expresses appreciation regularly, both partners experience increased satisfaction and emotional closeness. This is not simply about words. It is about the awareness behind the words, which shapes the sincerity and energy of the exchange. In friendships, the same truth applies. If your awareness is locked on how a friend has disappointed you, the calls they didn't return, the events they missed, your energy toward them will naturally cool. But if you keep your awareness on the ways they have been there for you, the shared history, the moments of laughter, your energy will stay warmer, making it easier to maintain the bond, even through periods of distance. Energy following awareness is also a principle that applies to self relationship. The way you treat yourself is often the template for how you treat others. If your awareness is habitually drawn to your own perceived failures, your energy will be marked by self-criticism. This self-criticism can leak into your interactions, making you more judgmental toward others. If your awareness is balanced between recognizing your flaws and honoring your strengths, your energy will reflect both humility and self-respect, creating a more stable and attractive presence in all relationships. There is an old teaching that says, the gaze shapes the thing it sees. In relationships, your gaze, your awareness, shapes not only how you perceive your partner, but how they respond to you. People rise or shrink in the presence of different energies. When you look at someone as if they are a constant source of disappointment, they will either withdraw or become defensive. When you look at someone with genuine appreciation, they are more likely to offer their best self. This is not manipulation. It is the natural reciprocity of human connection. The direction of your awareness also influences the stories you tell yourself about your relationships. If you notice only the difficult moments, your source story will be one of struggle and scarcity. If you notice the supportive and joyful moments as well, your story becomes one of resilience and connection. And because we live inside our stories, the energy we bring to each day is profoundly affected by the story our awareness has built. Energy following awareness is not a mystical idea reserved for moments of deep meditation. It is present in every look you give, every word you speak, every silence you share. It is there when you walk into a room and decide whether to notice the warmth or the flaws. It is there when you wake up next to someone and decide whether to notice the comfort of their presence or the irritation of their habits. Your relationships are being shaped by this principle every single day, whether you are aware of it or not. The journey towards self-mastery is not about becoming someone new, but about returning to the depth of who you already are. It is about learning to meet yourself in stillness, to recognize the patterns that cloud your vision, and to choose awareness over impulse. When you realize that you are already enough, you stop moving through life as if you are a problem to be solved. You begin to see that the strength you seek in relationships, the peace you long for in your mind, and the sense of purpose you hope to find are not somewhere outside of you. They are cultivated in the quiet, steady practice of knowing and honoring yourself. In relationships, this inner work becomes a gift you offer to others. Your emotional steadiness creates safety. Your clarity invites honesty. Your ability to pause before reacting transforms conflict into connection. And when you live from the understanding that you are whole as you are, you no longer approach others from a place of lack, but from a place of fullness. From here, love is not a transaction, but a natural overflow. Respect is not demanded, but inspired. And connection is not built on fear of losing someone, but on the freedom to grow together. Life will still bring challenges, misunderstandings, and moments of pain. But when your foundation is steady, you can meet them without losing yourself. You can listen without defensiveness, speak without aggression, and act without regret. You become a mirror in which others can see their own strength more clearly. You create relationships that are rooted in truth rather than illusion, in acceptance rather than expectation. The work is never finished, but it becomes less about striving and more about deepening, less about proving and more about being. In this way, every moment, even the difficult ones, becomes an opportunity to practice presence, to cultivate compassion, and to live in alignment with the quiet, knowing that you are, and always have been, enough.